Whiskey in the glass, golf in the mind. This is Inside the Ropes, a Golf Cask original, where we dive in deep into the grain, the smoke, and the stories that bring us together. Welcome to Inside the Ropes for the week of December 29th. I'm your host, Brian Bailey, a little under the weather, caught the flu this holiday season. So let's get started. The final weekly episode. This episode feels a little different, and that's intentional. This is the final weekly Inside the Ropes episode. Not an ending, just a smarter rhythm. We're closing the year the same way we lived it, with intention, perspective, and respect for the craft. This episode follows the same structure as December 14th. 5 stories, clean segues, time to breathe, between ideas. We'll move from whiskey to cigars to golf to adventure, and we'll finish with a look ahead of 2026 and why it all matters. No hype, no rush, just the ropes. So let's start with the pour. These are the top 5 stories read in 2025. Top selling whiskeys in each American state, a regional breakdown. Whiskey has long been an integral part of the American culture, from its colonial origins to its deep roots in music, folklore, and craftsmanship. Across the country, whiskey preferences vary, blending national bestsellers with local favorites that highlight regional traditions. Below is a breakdown of the top-selling whiskeys in each U.S. state, categorized by region. The American South, a whiskey stronghold. The South is synonymous with bourbon and Tennessee whiskey, where legendary brands and emerging craft distilleries thrive. Let's take a look at the top-selling brands in the South. Alabama, you have Claude May's Alabama-style whiskey. Arkansas's top, Rocktown Distillery, Arkansas Bourbon. Florida, St. Augustine Distillery, Florida Straight Bourbon. Georgia, we have AWS Distillery, Fiddler Bourbon. Kentucky, Maker's Mart and Jim Beam. Louisiana, Bayou Single Barrel Bourbon. Mississippi, Cathead Old Soul Bourbon. North Carolina, Defiant American Single Malt. South Carolina, 6 and 20 Distilleries, 5-grain bourbon. Tennessee, of course, Jack Daniels. The South continues to drive whiskey sales in the U.S., with Kentucky and Tennessee leading the powerhouse producers. While Jack Daniels and Jim Beam dominate nationwide, smaller distilleries like Claude May's and St. Augustine Distillery cater to local tastes. So if you're traveling throughout the South, go to Golf Cask Maps and go visit Claude May's, St. Augustine, Defiant. Cheers. Now let's move on to the Mid-Atlantic that has a rich history of craft and innovation. This region showcases a blend of bourbon, rye, and single malt whiskeys, with an increasing presence of the craft distillers. Let's take a look at the best sellers inside the Mid-Atlantic. Delaware, Painted Stave Diamond Stay Bourbon. Maryland, Sagamore Spirited Rye. Virginia, Catoctin Creek Roundstone Rye. West Virginia, Smooth Amber Contradiction Bourbon. Pennsylvania, Dad's Hat Pennsylvania Rye. New Jersey, All Points West Malt and Grain Pot Stilled Whiskey. And then New York, Hudson Baby Bourbon. Rye whiskey maintains a strong presence in Maryland and Pennsylvania, a nod to their historical ties to the Americans' earliest whiskey productions. Meanwhile, craft distilleries in the Mid-Atlantic are elevating regional preferences with innovative offerings, much like golfers mastering their short game for precision on the greens. So if you're in the Mid-Atlantic, I encourage you to enjoy these wonderful craft distillers. I really enjoy Sagamore and Catoctin Creek. So let's go to the flyover states, the growing whiskey scene. Often overlooked, the central U.S. has become a stronghold for craft whiskey distilling, producing some of the most innovative bourbons and ryes in the entire country. So let's take a quick look at Ohio. Middle West Spirits, OYO Bourbon. Indiana, Starlight Distillery, Carl T. Bourbon. Illinois, Few Spirits Bourbon. Michigan, Journeyman Last Feathery Rye. Missouri, Holiday Distillery, Bottle and Bonded Bourbon. Minnesota, Panther Distillery, Minnesota 14 Whiskey. Wisconsin, Driftless Glen Bourbon. Iowa, Cedar Ridge, Iowa Bourbon. Kansas, Union Horse Reserve Bourbon. Nebraska, Cooper's Chase Bourbon. North Dakota, Proof Artisan Distillers, Crooked Furrow Bourbon. South Dakota, Badlands Distillery, Badlands Bourbon. Oklahoma, Scissortail Straight Bourbon. Craft distilleries in these states continue to push boundaries, providing whiskey lovers with new and exciting options that blend heritage with modern techniques, much like refining a golf swing to achieve a lower score. Now it's off to the Rocky Mountains. The high-altitude climate of the Rocky Mountains region contributes to a unique aging process and bold flavor profiles. I have to tell you, some of my favorite distilleries come out of the Rockies. In Colorado, you have Stranahan's Colorado Whiskey, number 1. Idaho, Warfield Organic American Whiskey. Montana, Glacier Distilling North Fork Rye. Utah, High West Double Rye. Tasty. Wyoming Whiskey Small Batch. Stranahan's, High West, and Wyoming Whiskey lead in innovation and popularity, producing high-quality American single malts and bourbons shaped by mountain air and altitude. Whiskeys as bold as risk-reward shot over water on a championship golf course. Now it's time to go west, my friends. Artisanal and experimental flavors from the West Coast. The West Coast whiskey scene is a dynamic mix of tradition and experimental styles, with a focus on craft distilling. California, Old Protero Straight Rye Whiskey. Nevada, Fry Ranch Cast Strength Bourbon. Oregon, Clear Creek McCarthy Oregon Single Malt. Washington, Westland American Single Malt. Craft whiskey brands are thriving in this region, with Westland and McCarthy leading a resurgence of American single malts production. Like a well-read putt, these whiskeys require patience and precision to fully appreciate their depth and complexity. And we can't forget about our friends up in the Northeast, where tradition meets innovation. A mix of old-world influence and modern craftsmanship defines whiskey in the Northeast. Connecticut, Litchfield Distillery Double-Barreled Bourbon. Maine, Split Rock Distilling Organic Bourbon. Massachusetts, Bully Boy American Straight Whiskey. New Hampshire, Tamsworth Distilling Old Man of the Mountain Bourbon. Rhode Island, Sons of Liberty Battle Cry American Single Malt. Vermont, of course, Whistle Pig Rye. Whistle Pig and Hudson Bay Bourbon represent the growing influence of the Northeast distiller, with rye whiskeys remaining a significant player in this market. Each sip is akin to a well-struck iron shot that lands softly next to the pen. And we can't forget about our two outcasts, Alaska and Hawaii, distilling in a unique climate. Despite geographical challenges, these states have cultivated thriving whiskey communities. Alaska, Port Chilkoot's 50 Fathoms Rye. Hawaii, Kuhula Kauai Hawaiian Straight Whiskey. Alaska's 50 Fathoms Rye is shaped by extreme cold, while the Hawaiian whiskey brings tropical influences to whiskey making, much like adjusting club selection for different course conditions. So final thoughts on the best-selling whiskeys for every state. Whether it's Kentucky bourbon, Maryland rye, or West Coast single malts, every state in the U.S. has developed a whiskey identity. National brands continue to dominate, but the rise of regional distilleries is reshaping the whiskey landscape, offering new flavors and experiences to whiskey lovers nationwide. As the American whiskey market continues to grow, expect more states to embrace craft distilling, blending tradition with innovation for the next generation of whiskey enthusiasts. Just as golfers refine their game to shoot lower scores and enjoy every round to the fullest. The takeaway is simple. Every state drinks its own story. And the more local that story becomes, the better American whiskey gets. Before we spark the next story, let's slow down for a moment. Poor decisions isn't about telling you what you like. It's about explaining why something works and why it might not. Courses, whiskey, cigars, lounges, no hype scores, no influencer math, just context, clarity, and a whole lot of honesty. Because taste is personal, but trust is earned. And with this earned trust, you'll help everyone inside of Golfcast Nation discover something new. So now let's jump over to our spark and talk about, before cigars were a luxury item, they were actually survival stories. The evolution of the cigar, a rolling legacy. This was an evolution series from November 3rd, 2025. Long before cigar brands carried famous names, before humidors and handshakes in lounges, cigars were stories rolled in a leaf. Stories of migration, craftsmanship, and pride. The art of the cigar rolling was passed through generations of families who learned by feel, not formula. Every perfect draw begins with a pair of hands that have spent a lifetime listening to the leaf. From conquest to craft, cigars trace their roots to the early explorers who encountered the Taino people of the Caribbean, puffing on rolled tobacco wrapped in palm leaves. By the 1500s, tobacco had sailed across the Atlantic, sparking both fascination and controversy inside of Europe. Spain built factories in Cuba, and within a century, Havana became the epicenter of cigar production. But the legacy of rolling didn't stay put As revolutions, wars, and trade embargoes swept through the Caribbean, families fled Cuba carrying little more than seeds, recipes, and muscle memory. They replanted traditions in new soils, the Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Honduras, and discovered that terroir, much as whiskey grain or Gulf's ground, would shape each region's characteristics. Let's take a look at the hands behind the leaf. A cigar roller, or torcedor, is part artisan, part alchemist. Their craft isn't measured in machinery, but in touch. The soft pleasure that decides how airflow will follow through the tobacco years after it is lit. A good roller can feel the difference between leaves aged 6 months versus 8, between a wrapper that will burn evenly and one that will split. In traditional factories, apprentices spend many years mastering the bunch and roll, sitting shoulder to shoulder with masters who pass down not just technique, but patience. Every cigar is a fingerprint of its maker, a blend of heritage and hand. Migration and revival. When Cuba closed its borders, many thought the cigar world had lost its crown. But exile turned into expansion. The next generation built new empires in Santiago, Estella, and Donley. The old Cuban seeds, the Coronjo, the Criollo, and the Habano, took root in new soil and revealed flavors nobody expected, spicier, earthier, and more complex. By the 1990s, the cigar boom reignited global fascination. What began as a survival had evolved into innovation. Boutique brands, once the underdogs, became the storytellers, each blend a tribute to ancestors who rolled through hardship and in hope. Lessons from the leaf. Every evolution of cigar making isn't about tobacco, it's about perseverance. Each straw connects you to the journey of those who refuse to let the heritage burn out. Like a good whiskey or a well-played round, craftsmanship is never rushed. It's aged, tested, and handed down. The takeaway: every cigar is a time capsule, a whisper of the island it came from and the hands that shaped it. We lit it not just for taste, but for history. From Cuba's cobblestone factories to rolling tables inside of Nicaragua and the Dominican Republic, the legacy endures. The smoke rises, the stories continued, and with every puff, the craft evolves. Cigar history teaches the same lessons as golf and whiskey. What lasts isn't to be rushed, it's to be passed down. And speaking of craftsmanship that rewards patience, Golf Cask Life is built for people who care about how things are made and why. It's not about trends, it's all about understanding. If you believe that the ritual matters as much as the result, you're already living it. So make sure you follow us as we release 4 new Golf Cask Life magazines in 2026. Now it's time to take a swing and jump over to the golf course. We're going to be discussing legacy golf links inside of the Pinehurst area. It's a Jack Nicklaus design, championship pedigree, and a finishing hole named The Bear. Legacy Golf Links, The Bear, was under construction. Legacy Golf Links in Aberdeen, North Carolina is known for its Jack Nicklaus design, rolling hills, towering pines, and a championship layout that once hosted the 2000 U.S. Women's Amateur Pub Links. With wide fairways, scenic lakes, and a back nine finish known as the Bear, the course has earned accolades and placed among Pinehurst area's favorites. But let me tell you what Legacy looked like the morning at 8:33 a.m. My son and I rolled up into the parking lot and thought we had taken a wrong turn into a construction site. Imagine a golf apocalypse, sponsored by Bobcat. The Pro Shop, a glorified storage container, posted up next to the food truck. I wasn't sure if I was checking in for a tea time or ordering a bacon, egg, and cheese. Let's call it a 2.0 experience, a bogey. Hospitality, cordial staff, sure, but not a whisper about the ongoing chaos when we booked it. How about warm-up? Well, it was more like work with what you got. The range, small, but hey, it was off grass. Not a short game facility, and a compact putting green, which was in decent shape but hardly inspired confidence. Ranking 2.5, bogey par. Then comes the kicker. The starter casually lets us know that 900 trees have been taken out. Stick piles were everywhere. I can attest to that. And get this, no out of bounds. So if you rocket one into someone's backyard, just hop on over and grab it. You get a free drop. I've never played on a course with rules like this in 30 years. Spray and pray? Nah. This was spray and go shopping on someone's deck. On course. Sort of. Fairways were massive, like hitting down a 6-lane highway. and the lack of bunkers was jarring. There were no bunkers on the back nine, and only a couple on the front, which were, let's say, optional. Then came a moment for golf memories. I hit a tee shot off a bridge from a mat. No, not a metaphor here, people. Actually, hit a shot off a bridge from a mat. And shout out to the construction crew, who may or may not have been channeling fat and lazy uncle energy. Tools and machinery were strewn across the fairways like a DIY episode gone off the rails. But, and this is a big old but, the bones were good. The layout had promise, greens were challenging and rolled true. The crew we were paired with was fun, my son beat me again, and despite the madness, we enjoyed the vibe. The signature bear fell asleep. The famed 18th, a solid hole with a forced carry over water and a slippery green, but not the climax it wants to be. We gave it a 3.0, a par. More teddy bear than grizzly. Final golf cask rating, 2.5. Par, bogey. Right now, Legacy Golf Links feels like it's in a midlife crisis. A respected course trying to find itself again. Between the missing trees, missing bunkers, and missing pro shop, there's a lot going on. But with patience and maybe a fewer construction vehicles, this place has potential to rise again. Would I go back? Yeah, when the dust settles. I'll bring my own mat, just in case. I will give this the GolfCast stamp with anticipation of the future. Let's pause again, because the next story just isn't about an event, it's a statement. The 7th Annual Virginia Bourbon Invitational, Spirits on the Shore. The 7th Annual Virginia Bourbon Invitational at the historic Cavalier Hotel was as polished as it gets. Perfect 70-degree weather, live music, great food, and enough bourbon to challenge even the most seasoned palate. Huge thanks to Tarnished Truth for giving my daughter Macy and myself early access to film distillers before the gates opened. Follow us on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook to catch the behind-the-scenes content. The Kentucky heavyweights, Maker's Mart, Rabbit Hole, 1792, drew the long lines, but the heartbeat of the event came from Virginia craft distillers hustling under their smaller tents. We hit everyone: Catoctin Creek, solar-powered rye pioneers, Copper Fox, Applewood Smoke Malt Masters, Ironclad, Maple Finish Pros, Reservoir, Fearless 155 Hazmat Rye, Ragged Branch, Pickerel Guided Farm to Flask, Reverend Spirits, Bold 21% Rye Bourbons, plus Chesapeake Bay, KO, Sandy River, Three Crosses, Cashile, Virago, Mean Spirits, and the home team, Tarnished Truth. Macy's favorites were the Catoctin Creek Maple Rye, sweet with a confident kick, and the Ragged Branch 7-year wheated bourbon, which she declared the smoothest of the day. I couldn't resist Reservoir's Hazmat Rye, 155 proof, fiery, but impressively balanced. The vibe, electric, bacon skewers, bourbon truffles, distillers telling stories, and the crowd swapping tasting notes as the sun dipped behind the Cavalier. If you missed it, circle next November. The 8th Annual Virginia Bourbon Invitational will come quick and sell out even quicker. Grab your VIP tickets and experience Virginia spirits at full strength. A world-class event with unmistakable Virginia soul. I plan on meeting up with you next year at the Cavalier in Virginia Beach. Cheers, my friend. The Cavalier in Virginia Beach just didn't host an event, it hosted a community. So, now let's look ahead to 2026. What things are going to change inside the podcast and video platform here in Golf Cask. Always taking input from the fans, we have some new additions and some slight changes to past offerings. Starting in 2026, Inside the Ropes becomes a monthly review, released the first Monday of every month. Slower, stronger, more intentional. We will look over the entire past month and pull out the top-rated stories by you, the listener. Then come 2 new features. Week 2 is what we're going to call Legends. This is the story of people, places, and things that have lived the Golf Cask ethos and shaped our passions, golf, whiskey, and cigars. Told light, told human, told right. Week 3, we're back with Between the Ears, the Cut Line. Dr. Mike, Chris, and myself are back for another year of performance, psychology, and honest conversation. The final week, we'll have a whiskey cigar pairing show with the Whiskey Syndicate boys. We're going to go ahead and show you how to pair whiskeys and cigars to elevate both experiences. And make sure you check out our new challenge series inside of Golf Cask. That's right, each month we're going to give you monthly challenges inside of Spark, Sip, Swing, Adventures, and Community. Elevate your passions, find a new friend or two along the way, and enjoy the challenge. All right, it's time to close out the 2025 edition of Inside the Ropes. This year reminded us what matters doesn't shout, it endures. To everyone who read, listened, poured, traveled, practiced, shared a story, or simply stayed curious, thank you. You're not an audience. You're the reason this all works. So, as the calendar flips and the glasses refill, here's the toast to close out this year. To curiosity over certainty. To craft over convenience. To patience, practice, and people who care. May your drives find fairways, your pours find good company, and your stogies age better than your excuses. Happy New Year, Golf Cask Nation. We'll see you next month, right here inside the ropes where you belong. Spark, sip, swing at Golf Cask. Cheers, my friend. See you in 2026. Until next time, keep your heads down, your spirits high, and your glass half full. Spark, sip, swing at Golf Cask.